It's not any other type of biblical literature, such as prophecy, parables, types, proverbs, allegories, antidotes, and that's spelled right, or doctrinal teaching. Moreover, it's not a non-biblical type of literature called myths. There's no myths in the Bible, contrary to what some people would take. They say, well, this is just a myth. No, there's no myths any place in the Bible. There's historical narratives, there's prophecies, there's poetry, there's doctrinal teaching, but there's no myths. Genesis 1-2 is a creation. Creation is one of several histories. They're called Toledoths in Hebrew in Genesis. And you'll see this. And it's an interesting word. Like it says in Genesis 2, I think verse 3 or 4, it says, and this is the history of the creation of the heavens and the earth. Okay? Toledoth, it looks like, it comes from the word to create, as humans would do, or even beget. And some people have translated this as generations, as genealogies, but most of them don't involve genealogies at all. What these are accounts that were either transmitted accurately verbally or actually written down. Toledoths. And this is an account of this, but there was no human there. So this Toledoth was probably given to Adam, in this case by God, and written down. Now we have Toledoth, it says, and this is the history of not only the heavens and the earth, we have another one that says this is the history of Adam. This is the history of Noah. This is the history of Abraham. It uses it about 11 times in the book of Genesis. What Moses evidently did was collect these things that pre-existed him and put them together under divine inspiration. And so that's what we have. Moses collected and composed these histories together and wrote Genesis by divine revelations. In other words, he was not working with just a cold slate. It's just not like a prophet. Now some people say, well, how could you write accurately the past like that when no one was there? I said, well, if he can give a prophet the things that are of the future, that have never taken place yet, certainly he can tell one of the past. That's 20/20 vision. But these are not just special revelations that Moses got. These are actually things that existed at his time that he put together. And some people, as we're going to see, these forefathers of ours, Adam, through Noah, those people were more intelligent than we are. Their languages were much more complicated than us. And Moses and Adam named all the animals. And he didn't forget what they were called. He didn't have short-term memory losses, as most of us have. He could pass an exam. Once he'd seen them, it was forever. Their intelligence was much better than ours, and we're losing that with time. Your children will be able to remember less than you do. It's all a question of genetic entropy. So these stories that we're seeing here are histories that were written down, probably written down, we don't know for sure, but we know that they predated Moses, and that's why it uses this term of them. Some more observations. The first acts of creation, matter came out of nothing. And why that's so stunning is that's supernatural, because the universe can't create one atom. In fact, you know what's incredible? With all of our laboratories, we can't even create one carbon atom out of electrons and protons. Don't you find that stunning? But we can't even create that out of nothing, electrons and protons, from scratch. I'll give you the electrons and protons, you just produce an atom for me, a carbon atom. It's not possible. And yet here you have this stuff coming into being, and not just a few atoms, the whole universe. Basically at the same time, because we know as we look around at it, it's burning out all at the same time. The novas, boom, 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 are going around us in a uniform pattern around us in every direction. We're looking at the 4th of July. And they all started about the same time, and they're all burning out at the same time. But this thing comes in, all this matter comes into being in a very short amount of time. And you have the adding of not only calling them matter, but then you add the energy as light. Energy in free energy is basically electromagnetic radiation. It can be light, it can be lower forms, it can be even higher forms like X-rays and things. Giving the universe a perfect order, as God said, good and very good. Yesterday was a better universe than today. Tomorrow will be worse than today. It started off all as good. It took place in 6 daily stages. Yom, that's the Hebrew word for day, always means a 24-hour day in Hebrew when each word has an evening and a morning and has a number with a day, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Yom can, in some cases, can mean a longer period of time, like the day of the Lord, or in the day that the Lord created the heavens and the earth, but never in Hebrew when it's used with an evening and a morning, and never when it's used with a number. God created, and that's the term bara, an orderly universe from disordered matter, contrary to the present order of the universe. God did not finish creating the universe until what? The 6th day. It wasn't complete. Man wasn't there. Nothing was done until the 6th day, and then it's finished. The sequence and the time frames of the events in Genesis 1 and 2 do not follow evolutionary schemes. You have plants before you have aquatic animals, fish and things. And you end up with whales. And whales or mammals, well, what did they do? Come up on the earth and then go back into the water? They're created before the land animals, whales. They don't follow the evolutionary schemes, and also they do not follow modern cosmological schemes, because you have light and the universe before you have stars and planets and the moon. Let's make some other observations about the creation. You have the first 5 days are couplets of the first 3 days, are couplets of the second 3 days. In the first 3 days, you create a domain, okay? In the second 3 days, you put the things that belong in that domain. God created them that way. The first day, for instance, you have light in the universe. The 4th day, you have celestial lights are put into the universe. Second day, you have water separated by a firmament. The 5th day, you have water animals in the waters, and you have birds flying across the firmament. The 3rd day, you have land created. You remember he called the water out of the land out of the water, and it's given the plant kingdoms. Okay? The 6th day, you have the land animals, including man. By the way, there's a symbiotic relationship, and Mike will get into this some more too, of between plants and animals. Plants, in fact, you can tell whether a bacteria is an animal or a plant by its whole system. Plants take in CO2 and put out oxygen, and animals take in oxygen and put out CO2. And we work together this way. And animals don't breathe air. They breathe in CO2. Well, some of it's air. They have to have air, but it's CO2, and they generate the system by which we live. We can't eat rocks and drink water and live. We don't have the ability to take advantage of the sun's energy. So the plants do that with photosynthesis. They generate the stuff that we eat so that we can live. God's very clever in this thing, so he creates the plants before he does any of the animals. Last thing here is Jesus and the New Testament verify that Genesis 1 through 11 as a young universe history. Jesus, the divine creator, verifies the creation of Adam and Eve. He says, from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. He's treating Adam and Eve as real people in history. Jesus, the divine creator, verifies the historicity and people in Genesis, like Matthew 24 and other books of Moses, as history. Luke traces Jesus to Adam, the Son of God, through Genesis 5 and 11, which we'll see later, genealogies that are only thousands of years old. Peter and Paul built their theologies on Adam, Romans 5, and Romans 1 Corinthians 15. For by one man sin entered the world, and death through sin. And he's the first Adam, and who's the second? Jesus is the one that's going to release us from the curse and the problem of sin. And other historical people and events, like 2 Peter refers to several of them in Genesis and other books of Moses. Observation: are Jesus, the creator, Luke, Peter, Paul, lying about the historicity of Genesis? Or do they speak of Genesis as true history? Appreciate this time. We'll go on in the next session, and we're going to discuss the implications, the scientific implications of Genesis 1 and 2.